What is up, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Somewhat Sports Podcast. My name is Chris, and I am joined by two of the greats in this industry, Jurg and Dame. Fellas, how are we this week?
Doing good. Almost forgot we were doing this today. Almost flew over my head. About to leave my house, but I'm doing good.
I am doing good as well as always. I am back in the oh so great state of Connecticut, ladies and gentlemen, and the sun is shining up here, and it just fills me in a good mood to once again be a part of yet another episode of the best sports podcast out there. Which, who knows, maybe we'll get a Friday night time slot from 8 to 10 p.m. on a certain channel that needs it within a year's time. So, this podcast could be going places.
Or it could just stay the exact same way, because,
Pro- Probably that.
yeah. Yeah. Just another week of us sucking football off because, football's on right now. Basketball's around the corner, and we'll probably talk about that in a few weeks. But for now, we're just going to be talking NFL. NHL will also be resuming. Jurg, of course, will handle it as always, like the champ he is, like the hockey prince that he is, handling all NHL news. No one better, might I add. But NFL this week, what we're going to talk about, basically a little bit of a rundown of the past 2 weeks. We're heading into week 3 already, fellas. That's kind of nuts that we're already into week 3 of the NFL season, but time doesn't stop for anyone. What we're going to do this week is that we're going to talk about the 2-0 teams, and we're also going to talk about the 0-2 teams. Teams that were most surprised that are 2-0, and teams that were most disappointed in that they're 0-2. A bunch of surprises, actually. There's a bunch of teams that we didn't expect to be down in the gutter already, but I mean, that's where they're at. Some pretty important games for week 3, I might add. We talked about this a few weeks ago. It's early in the season, but some of these games, the importance meter is hitting hard right now because seasons may be defined in the coming weeks, actually. So basically, yeah, surprises and disappointments so far in the season. We already know it's 2 weeks. Maybe we're jumping the gun, but I do think there are some storylines to talk about here because there's certain teams that kind of need to be 2-0 because of like how strong their divisions are and all that. So yeah, and then there's also teams that are 0-2 that can't afford to be 0-2 because their divisions are that tough. So here we are, fellas. Are we ready?
Let's do it.
All right, I'll take it that Dame's ready too. But yeah, let's start off with the biggest surprises at 2-0 so far, fellas. I'm gonna name you the teams that are 2-0 in the NFC. Like most of the teams that are 2-0 are from the NFC, actually. Cowboys, Eagles, Commanders, 49ers, Falcons, Saints, and the Bucks. In the AFC, the Dolphins and the Ravens are the only teams that are 2-0. So those are all the teams that are 2-0. Just go one by one here. Cowboys, I think we expected them to be 2-0. I mean, they had the Giants and the Jets. Before the Aaron Rodgers injury, we thought maybe the Jets would have a chance to, go to toe with the Cowboys. But after the Aaron Rodgers injury, we knew that the Cowboys are favored. I think they were 9.5 point favorites against the Jets in the days leading up to the game. So they manhandle both New York teams. They're 2-0. I don't think we're really surprised at that. Eagles 2-0. They're the Eagles. I mean, we have high hopes for them. They're a championship team, but pretty suspect 2-0. I mean, 2-0 is 2-0, of course, but it hasn't been the best looking 2-0. I mean, they were kind of in a dogfight with the New England Patriots, and the Vikings game, I mean, that came down to
Sloppy.
the wire, right? It was sloppy. Like that game, they won by 6, and that was a game that Justin Jefferson's touchdown was kind of robbed. So it was a little weird. It was a little weird. I mean, but again, they're 2-0, but just a little. They haven't been solid performances yet from the Eagles. But yeah, Commanders. No, sorry. 49ers 2-0. They smoked the Steelers, and who did they beat this week? And then the 49ers beat the Rams. Yeah, I mean, these teams probably know the top 3 teams in the NFC, so not really surprising, but they are 2-0. And then after that, I would say these are leading candidates for the most surprises. Commanders being 2-0, shout out to them. Shout out to them. And then, of course, most of the NFC South, Falcons, Saints, Bucks 2-0. Fellas, I got to say, I'm actually happy that most of the NFC South is 2-0 because that was one of the divisions that we thought would be, the more meh divisions. But 2-0, and I think it's there's more of it's not a foregone conclusion now that the Saints are going to win the division because I mean, look, it's early in the season and one of these teams is going to drop off, but I like some parity in some of these rough divisions, to be honest. But so yeah, and the Commanders being 2-0, I do think Sam Howell has like surpassed expectations. I gotta say, man, Eric Bieniemy, the addition of him has really helped this Commanders team. And man, oh man, I feel like his absence is really being felt for sure in the Kansas City Chiefs organization because they have been struggling to score. I know week 1 they didn't have Travis Kelsey, but week 2 they only put up what? How many points did they put up? 17 against the Jaguars. Wasn't a good looking game. So yeah, fellas. Oh, and then of course the AFC, Dolphins Ravens 2-0. I mean, those are the two teams in the AFC that we have moderately high expectations for. There's a lot of ifs with those teams, but they did handle business. They did handle business. Ravens had a statement win against the Bengals. And then for the Dolphins, yeah, we talked about them. As long as they stay healthy, that's a Super Bowl caliber team. So, fellas, of all of these teams, who are we most surprised is 2-0? Jurg, let me start off with you.
Whew, I mean, I feel like it's a pick your poison between any of the NFC South teams,
Yeah.
really, for that. I mean, I guess maybe aside from them, it would be the Commanders because you thought Denver would have had something together, but clearly, no.
Let me ask this then. Let me reverse the question, Jurg.
Uh-huh.
Who benefits the most from being 2-0?
You're saying just overall or
Yeah.
in particular? Right now,
In particular, yeah. Which team in particular benefits the most from being 2-0 right now?
I think the biggest benefit to being 2-0 right now is, to me, the Dallas Cowboys.
Mm.
And that might sound a little bit weird to people, but I think the biggest benefit for Dallas is the fact that Philadelphia just has a little bit of a tougher schedule than them overall, because this was a Philadelphia team that at the end of it, they were the best team in the regular season last year in the NFC. And by virtue, that grants them more tough games to have to deal with. I think you look at the Cowboys, you have games coming up, like their next two games are against the Cardinals and the Patriots, which are combined 0 for 4, especially that Cardinals game might be a slaughter. You have then after that is the 49ers, which, that should be a really good game, but like that's just their next three in particular, right? Then you look at the Eagles, their next three games, the combined records of those teams. So you look at the Cowboys' next three games, the opponents' combined records right now. I know it's early, but it's 2-4. The Eagles' next three opponents have a combined record of 5-1. I think by virtue, the Cowboys, because they are off to this hot start, this gives them a very good shot to keep pace with Philly early, which I think is going to be the ultimate key for them trying to challenge Philadelphia for number one in the division and the conference overall, of course. Because I think coming into the season, it was on a lot of different shows, analysts, podcasts, all said Philly was the number one team in the NFC, and San Fran was probably number two. Dallas wants to be considered the third team, and if they can steal home field advantage away from San Fran and Philly, that's going to be big for them in the playoffs because now, granted, have they lost home playoff games before? Absolutely. But that little bit of an edge to where you don't have to go into Santa Clara or into Philadelphia because Lord Lincoln Financial for a Dallas Cowboys playoff game will just be a next level madhouse. Like, I think this is amazing for Dallas to be able to go 2-0 to start. And on paper, it was supposed to be two decent teams, right? Like the Giants, we didn't know that they were bad enough to get murdered by 40 points and also to be shut out for the first 6 quarters of a season. I don't care what happened in the last two. It's the first 6 that I think are very much more telling. And then a New York Jets team that, yes, they got unlucky with what happened in week 1, but that was still a good enough team that it was going to be on paper heading into it a maybe decent game. Like now you give yourself a really good chance to start out 4-0 this season, and Philly could be on upset alert one of the next 2 weeks. This is amazing for Dallas. I think they are the biggest benefactor in this 2-0 start compared to everyone else.
Dame, team you're most surprised is 2-0 and team that you think benefits the most from being 2-0.
So I'm most surprised about the Bucks, and I specifically picked the Bucks because I'm surprised at the way Baker has been playing. I thought without a doubt this team was going to finish last in that division. Now they're obviously tied for first at 2-0. And I mean, one of their wins is pretty. I'm not going to say the Bears was impressive because we'll get into the Bears about their QB, but I think the Vikings win is super impressive. Obviously, I had the Vikings win the division. The Vikings are a good team. They went they're 12-4 last year. Obviously they have a good team with Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson. But I think that was super impressive. Obviously, then just dismantling Bears. Baker is obviously at this point is like a journeyman. He's kind of the last legs of his like starter career. He's might be just a backup for the rest of his career, but if he keeps this up, I mean, I don't see how the Bucks don't re-sign him. But I mean, clearly we all know that the NFC South was kind of that division that's known as maybe the worst division in the sport, outside of the AFC South, two awful divisions. But now at 2-0, I mean, this division's for the taking. Yeah, the Falcons, Saints, and Bucks all tied at 2-0. Um, you don't have any division wins per se, so that it's you'd rather be 2-0 with with two division wins or one division win. But regardless, starting 2-0 and looking the way you do gives your team confidence and gives Baker confidence, of course, to going forward with the season. I don't know who they play this week, but I'm sure they're going to be playing division opponents coming up, and I think those would be a real test of this team. But as for who benefits the most and who I'm surprised the most, it's the same answers: the Bucks.
Did the Vikings go 12-4 last year? Or 12-5 or 13-4? I think it was
13
one of
and
the.
4.
Okay, yeah, so
Yeah,
13 and
sorry.
4. It's all good. All right. Let's switch gears here, fellas. There are a couple of teams that are 0-2. Yeah, this one's pretty spread out because like I said, you know how the NFC had most of the 2-0 teams. Um I think the AFC has 5 0-2 teams and the NFC has 4 0-2 teams. So in the AFC, the Patriots, the Chargers, the Broncos, the Bengals, the Texans all 0-2. And in the NFC, the Cardinals, the Vikings, the Bears, the Panthers all 0-2. Um, this is simple. I think for the Texans, the Panthers, I think, and the Cardinals, of course, we kind of expected those teams to kind of struggle. I'm not gonna lie. I think the Cardinals could have actually beaten the Giants this past week, but they're up 28-0. I know the Giants made a comeback, and shout out to them. I do think a part of it was like the Cardinals saying, like, guys, I mean, come on now, we're getting away from the goal here, which is to lose every game. They understood the assignment here. Like they know Caleb Williams is more important than a win against the Giants. So yeah, Cardinals 0-2, all expected. Cardinals could very well go 0-17 to be honest, but yeah, Texans 0-2. Like those are teams like they have their quarterback, but they're still in very early stages of rebuild process. Bengals and Broncos. I don't even know what the expectations were for the Broncos actually, because yeah, they were going to be slightly better because you have Sean Payton now, but I mean the jury was out on Russ. Jerry Judy, did he play week 1? I know he was hurt, but did he play week 1 or
Week
no?
one he didn't play.
Okay.
Week two he played
Okay.
in limited
So
fashion.
okay. Um yeah, and the Broncos lost the absurd game last week to the Commanders. They're up 21-3, but I mean the Broncos we just kind of like knew. It's like we had to see it to believe it, but ultimately we knew they weren't going to be that great. Um the Bengals, I think the Joe Burrow injury has really, kind of fucked things up for them and he re-aggravated his calf. Now that could be a storyline for the future here because I mean, he injured that calf in the offseason, and that's what, causes the speculation if he's going to be out week 1. He hasn't looked great. Bengals have not looked great. And I don't know, re-aggravating that calf injury, not good. Not good.
Almost like they should have sat him and protected him for a week or two.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. The Bengals, I mean, they started off 0-2 last year, but it feels a little different now. I don't know. The vibes aren't great. But yeah, I think for like the biggest surprises here would be the Vikings and the Chargers, right? I think you could categorize the Broncos and the Patriots together. And then the Bears, I think, they could be in the tier with the Texans and the Panthers and the Cardinals, but because they quote made improvements to their roster, we thought they would be slightly better, you know? So I don't know, man. These teams, like for me, I think I could speak for all of us. Biggest surprise here, and correct me if I'm wrong, fellas. Chargers/Vikings, right? Is that and the Bengals?
Yeah.
Yeah, those are the three teams I have.
Okay,
Yes.
so I mean we got to pick one here. There's no middle ground. So, fellas, biggest disappointment, and which team do you think doesn't benefit the most from being 0-2? I mean, obviously all these teams, well, except the Cardinals, who I think obviously benefit the most from being 0-2. But which team do you guys think is being hurt the most from being 0-2? Dame, let me start off with you.
I think it's who I think is the most surprising to be 0-2. I think is the Chargers. I think they had two very winnable games, and I get it. The Dolphins look amazing. Their offense looks spectacular. But it's week one at home. You obviously have a chance to win the game. You are more talented on defense than the Dolphins are, and you have the weapons on offense. Austin Eckler at the time was healthy. Obviously, he wasn't healthy week 2. But week 1, you had a fully healthy squad, and you obviously have a new offense coordinator, all this excitement by your offense. And you just weren't able to get the job done. You let Tyreek Hill go for like 200 yards and Tua throw for 4 something. That's just unacceptable, especially in a week 1 matchup where you should be game planning for this team for a while. Um, and then week 2 was an absolute stinker. I mean, there's absolutely no excuse to lose to the Titans. I don't care if Austin Eckler is out. Austin Eckler isn't a thousand-yard rusher that is going to rush for like 100 yards a game and be the reason why you win games. The reason you're going to win games is with your passing game, and Herbert and Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, Quentin Johnson, your tight ends, all that kind of stuff. So Austin Eckler being out is not an excuse. There's no reason they show us the Titans. The Titans are an awful team. I get it. They're very well coached. Mike Vrabel is one of the top 3, top 5 coaches in the entire NFL. But there's no reason Justin Herbert should be losing to Ryan Tannehill. Absolutely none. They should be able to score more points. Justin Herbert should be able to score more points than Ryan Tannehill does. Like, the Titans defense isn't this spectacular like Cowboys or Niners or Jets defense where it's so hard to score against them. Justin Herbert, with the quality quarterback he has and the weapons he has on offense, he should absolutely be able to get the job done. As for which team I think is hurt the most by being 0-2, I think that goes to the Bengals. I think it's pretty obvious. I mean, they lost both games to division matchups, to division opponents. First, obviously, the Browns, and obviously it was like a monster rainstorm when they played, but it's still a very winnable game, and it hurts. And all right, fine, you go 0-1 in your division, but then you go on, you play the Ravens, who a lot of people have winning that division, and you go out and you lose again, and the offense just doesn't look great. And Joe Burrow clearly doesn't look right health wise. He has a calf issue, and calf issues aren't usually something that just go away. They usually linger or lead to something more. So that's going to be something to look forward to. And he plays on Monday night, and Monday night has been cursed the past 4 weeks. I don't know if you guys seen that going around. It was like Kyle Murray, Aaron Rodgers, and then Nick Chubb, who I don't know. Hopefully, God forbid, it doesn't keep going, but we'll see. But I think the Bengals are definitely the most hurt because they're 2 division losses that they have.
Yeah, honestly, a repeat for me in terms of what Dame said. I think the most surprising and inexcusable is the Chargers, and then the one that hurts the most is the Bengals. The easiest thing to repeat is, like Dame said, it's 2 losses in division on a division that's looking at a lot better than what we gave it, what I think some people gave it credit for. Although now the future of the division is very interesting because you have the Browns, who lost their number 1 running back for the season, and Nick Chubb. They did sign Kareem Hunt, but TBD on what's going to happen there. And then you have the Pittsburgh Steelers, who, yes, they were able to win the Monday Night Football game against the Browns, but good lord, like we talked about a an ugly game for the Eagles and Vikings, Chris. That may have been the ugliest game of football we've seen in a long time between the Browns and the Steelers. Like,
I could, it was on crack, that game. I didn't know what to make of it.
It honestly was. Like, you could not write anything better than that in terms of being just a wacky football game. Hollywood could not write anything better than that. I mean, they technically can't write anything better than that because they're on strike, but irregardless, yeah, I would say with the Bengals, it's the toughest for them at the moment because they are 0 and because them being 0 for 2 with those being division losses, and now Joe Burrow has re-aggravated his calf injury, which yet again, you should have sat him at least an extra week, but no, don't listen to logic, they say. But I think it's the biggest one for the Bengals. In terms of the Chargers, this is shaping up to be potentially the most disappointing team in football right now. I forget what season exactly it was, but there was a particular season in Philip Rivers' career when he was on the Chargers that, and obviously the expectations were always high for the San Diego Chargers when Rivers was there. But there's a season in particular, I'm forgetting the exact year in my head, that they on paper had, you would have thought, everything they needed. And they just sputtered out and made mistake after mistake, and they only went like 7-9, or maybe 6-10, or something like that. This is starting to give me vibes of that kind of season. Because despite the fact that the Chargers offense is sort of doing what they can, I mean, this was like the most recent game against the Titans. It was the worst game they played. No excuse for that. But this defense, like, this is my one disagreement with what Dame said about them. They were supposed to have a good defense. Not a top 10 defense, but they were at least supposed to be 11th, 12th, 13th. You cannot tell me that a defense that has Joey Bosa, a defense that has Khalil Mack, a defense with Derwin James, a defense with J.C. Jackson, Asante Samuel Jr., you cannot tell me that this defense should not be challenging for a top 10 spot in the league in terms of the talent that they have. And the fact that in the last 4 games, no, not even that. Yeah, no, actually, it is last 4 games. They gave up 30 something points to the Broncos to end off last season. They gave up that entire comeback against the Jaguars in the playoffs. They gave up the Herculean effort to the Dolphins, 36 points against the Dolphins last week. And then they gave up, 27, 28 points to the goddamn Ryan Tannehill Titans? Terrible. So, for the flaws, and no, trust me, the offense is not going to get away with it because good Lord Kellen Moore has not performed as an OC that everyone thought he would have compared to Lombardi. The defense is so bad right now. And I mean, I think you guys already heard the audio clip earlier this week, but there's pressure internally with that team, and there is a lot of pressure on Brendan Staley right now. Like, that seat is slowly starting to warm up a little bit, and he could say that last season's playoff upset has nothing to do with it. It does. It totally does. You don't recover from a playoff loss like that easily. But man, like we are starting to see shades of a team that does that because they make the mental mistakes of committing defensive pass interference to the Dolphins to end the first half when they didn't need to, allowing guys to just blow right past you. I'm not even talking about Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill will do that to anyone. I'm talking about the second, third, fourth receivers on other teams. Like, the Tennessee Titans do not have an impressive offense aside from Derrick Henry, but Ryan Tannehill still got 250 yards easy on them. It was an easy game that he had. That's unacceptable. That's inexcusable. And in a division where for the last 2 seasons, you've been expected to match with the Kansas City Chiefs, awful. Absolutely awful. We know this team has the talent, but there's just something that's not there's something that's keeping them from putting it all together. And the number one question is going to be the GM and the coach. And somehow Tom Telesco has lasted, I think, longer than most expected. And if he's going to be retained, which I haven't read or heard anything that he might get released, I think Brendan Staley's job, like, his head's going to be the first to roll on this team. It has just been bad, to say the very least. Just one last thing, because I know we haven't mentioned them. I don't know if you were going to briefly give them a mention here, Chris. But the Minnesota Vikings, frauds. Said this last season, and get to say this to start this season. Frauds.
It's crazy because, like, Kirk's actually having statistically a really good season.
Yes, but Dev Taxes.
I mean, he's on pace for like 6,000 yards. I think him and who. Damn, I forgot the other guy, but it's him and someone else are on pace for like 6,000 yards, which would shatter records.
Is it Jordan Love?
No,
not after that Falcons game. No,
but Tua. Sorry, it's him and
right,
Tua.
right.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. At the end of the day, like, I'm saying Minnesota Vikings. I'm not even saying Kirk Cousins anymore. This team is just fraudulent. Like, they let go of Dalvin Cook, Alexander Mattison, all due respect. Like, he wasn't ready to be a number one back. It's almost like cutting talented players makes your roster worse. And the defense, in the first week, they gave up a critical touchdown to Tampa Bay in the key moment. And they absolutely got shafted in the first, like, two and a half quarters against Philly. And they only put it together at the end. But they had to play catch up. This Minnesota Vikings team, like last year, is fraudulent. Yes, the quarterback is actually the good part of this team. But the running back situation is going to be, like, in the air, although they did just trade for Cam Akers yesterday as we were recording this. So they need to hope for that. I haven't seen anyone who's going to be the consistent number 2 wide receiver next to Justin Jefferson. The offensive line has not performed at the level that I thought, and the defense is performing exactly how I thought. Because when you let go of like 5 starters in the offseason, you're going to get worse. Like, their defense wasn't special last season, but you let go of 5 or 6 guys from a defense that already wasn't special. So what do you, like, how did you think you were going to get better? To the Minnesota Vikings specifically, frauds. Utter frauds. And I'm just so glad that the country is getting to see it firsthand.
Yeah. I do think Jordan Addison has shown flashes of brilliance, man. I think he could be a legitimate wide receiver too behind
He's a stud.
Justin Jefferson, man. He is really good.
Him and Zay Flowers have started the year insane. Those 2 rookie wide receivers.
Yeah. That's someone that Damien's trying to get, in fantasy. But we'll see how that goes. All right, fellas, week 3 is upon us, and there are some games, as we talked about before, that could be, monumental in terms of like defining certain team seasons. So Falcons play the Lions here. Fellas, this is an opportunity for the Falcons to go 3-0. And Lions have lost some key pieces, actually. I think Garner Johnson, is he out for the season?
I think what did he do? Tear his
pec? Yeah, he might be out for the season.
He might be out for the year. If anything, he comes back like really late.
Montgomery's hurt. I I think Amon is good, but he did get banged up in
He has a turf toe, which is a pretty lingering issue for wide receivers throughout the season. So this team is getting banged up pretty quick.
which sucks because I think
Yeah,
we had some decent expectations for the Lions, but for the Falcons, I mean, you got to like take advantage of this because again, we talked about the division, and look, Desmond Ritter, I think he's one of the worst starting quarterbacks in the NFL, but all if he just needs to manage because there are some sick weapons on that Falcons team. Some that Arthur Smith just doesn't know how to utilize because he sucks. Kyle Pitts and Drake London, bro. I think it's the right approach. In terms of just like you can't be mad if your team is winning. But those dudes are young guys, man, and like you kind of just want to show up and just play ball, man, and like I don't know. I'm pretty sure, like personally, there's a part of them that's just like, damn, I wish I got the rock more. But I mean, I am winning, so I don't know. I feel so bad for them, and I feel bad for fantasy owners who picked both of them up. Um, I really do think eventually, this is kind of off topic, but Kyle Pitts needs to be traded, bro. In terms of like, just he needs to like to recognize his own potential. He needs to get away from the Falcons. But Falcons, I think 3-0 would really benefit them. What do you call it? The Saints play the Packers. That game I think is a toss up, and I believe the Bucks play the Eagles. And spoiler alert, I don't think we have the Bucks winning that game. So I think this is an opportunity for the Falcons to kind of. I mean, the Saints could beat the Packers, but the Saints have been slightly suspect. However, they get Alvin Kamara back. I don't necessarily know how much he'll play in
no,
the
next
game.
week they get him back, not this week.
All right, he's out for 3
He's
games.
out 3 weeks. Yeah.
So there you go. So from what I've seen from the Saints, like 2-0, yeah, but it's slightly suspect 2-0. Like they haven't been great games. So I do think the Packers, because I've been impressed with them, they could pull off the upset against the Saints. I don't even know if it's an upset, but for me, in my opinion, I think pretty important games there. Just scrolling down here before I get to the important ones. Broncos, Dolphins, fellas. I mean, if we're getting to 0-3 for the Broncos in the AFC West, I mean, what are we doing? Like, do we punt the season at that point? I don't
Yeah,
think
pack
Sean
it
Payne's
up.
going to do it, but you need to pack it up. But I don't think they could fully pack it up. There's been too much investment for that team so far. But I don't know. I don't know. We all have the Dolphins winning that game, but Broncos, I think if they go 0-3, it's kind of done at this point because you're not winning the division. So your best bet is to kind of be a wild card team. But I don't know, man. I don't
Chris,
know.
it's funny because even if they somehow take a lead in the game, it doesn't matter. Like I saw this,
Yeah,
I don't know if you saw. I think it was CBS Sports that posted the Broncos have lost like 9 straight games when they've held a double-digit lead.
that's crazy,
That's
bro.
terrible. And this is a Dolphins team that they can make up a 2-score deficit in like 4 or 5 plays because of Tyreek Hill and
They're
Jalen Waddle.
nuts. They're nuts, bro. Holy shit, the Dolphins are nuts. I mean, Patrick Surtain, man, he's gonna have his work cut out for him because he's gotta he's gonna be on Tyreek Hill. So I mean, we'll see how that goes. But I mean, I think it's best for the Broncos to lose, bro. I think they have their first rounder this year,
Yeah,
right?
they have their first rounder.
So, bro, fucking just just tank, bro. Just tank. It's better.
Here's the thing though, like just I don't want to spend too much time on the Broncos because Lord knows they don't deserve it, but it's like I don't really think this is a team that one like top 5, top 6 pick is gonna fix their problems. Like because
Could be a start though.
it could be a start, but you think of this team like it next year. Russell Wilson will just be another year older. Sean Payne will be another year more senile. Their wide receivers will be another year closer to the emergency room because one of them is going to get injured in the preseason. And is Jerry Judy not a free agent after this year?
I don't know. They do have to make a decision with
I
this
think
contract.
he is.
So it's him.
Holy
It's
shit.
it's Cortland Sutton another year closer to the end of his second contract, and who knows because of how much they paid Russ, they're gonna have to like cut a guy or two most likely. I don't think the Broncos should they pack it up probably, but will they? I don't think they can. I don't. They've built a team that they're
Is
not
trying to
allowed.
win now. Or
Yeah, they're not
whatever.
allowed to tank.
Yeah.
They're just not allowed to tank.
I don't know. It's a tough decision. Like they're not trying to tank, but they're not going to win. Like that's the thing. So
It's tough.
double edged sword there. Bills Commanders guys. I think this game is somewhat interesting because I know we all have the Bills winning this, and people are going to think it might be a runaway game. I'm kind of impressed by the frisky Commanders, and I do think a win here in terms of like I think of all teams, they benefit the most from this. From all the 2-0 teams, I think they might benefit the most from getting a win here, right? You beat the Bills, you go 3-0 in a division with the Eagles and the Cowboys. I mean, guys, I think we got to start taking the Commanders seriously if they beat the Bills here. I know it's early, and maybe I'm jumping to conclusions, but that would be huge for the Commanders. For the Bills, if they lose this game, oh boy, go 1-2. Oh, they had a good performance against the Raiders, so GG there. Josh Allen looked better. Roller coaster, Josh Allen. But if you lose to the Commanders, I don't know, man.
Bills
I'm
ran
pushing the
punch on
panic button. I'm
audience.
pushing the panic button, bro. That's a game I'll be looking for because I actually do think it might be a decent game. It might be a decent game. Pats Jets. Uh, Patriots 0-2. Nothing like, you know, turning the season around like having the Jets next in your schedule. I mean, Zach Wilson, dude, this dude Bill Belichick feeds. Like he feasts upon Zach Wilson, bro.
on
Oh my
all
god.
on all young Jets quarterbacks
Yeah,
in
but
general.
particularly like Zach Wilson. It's
Well, the
I think
last
that
two, because wasn't it Sam Darnold that had the whole "I'm seeing ghosts"
dude,
thing?
he's such an idiot. I can't believe you said that mic'd. Yeah, that was bad. That was bad. I mean, look, I think the Jets are trying. They've lost 14 straight to the Patriots, so they're going to be motivated to beat them. The Patriots are 0-2. They're going to be motivated to beat the Jets. Their games last year all were sloppy. They sucked, but Patriots won them. I don't know. Maybe this could be a good game. I think the Jets, if they lose this game, I think darkness is looming. Darkness is looming, and I think Zach Wilson's career is also looming as well. Um, Bears Chiefs. Okay, this I think leads to a bigger discussion. Plethora of news regarding the Bears that we won't get into. But I do think the biggest one that we could take away is the Justin Fields news. Not really the news, but like the comments he made. So obviously Damian wins is with his narratives here because he's never been high on Justin Fields, as much as me and Jurg have. But he made I mean, they asked him about like overthinking and like him being robotic. I don't know if he said that he was being robotic, but he kind of said they asked him like the reasons why, like he may be overthinking, and then he said coaching. Um, and then, some people like he took it out of context. People took it out of context. But I don't know. The way he answered it didn't necessarily make it seem like he didn't mean that. I do think he really means it deep down. I do think Justin Fields thinks he's being held back. Um, but this Bears team is in shambles right now because, I don't think the expectations for them are high. But again, we thought they'd be better. But now your quarterback, the one that you were building around, is just, not seeing eye to eye with the coaching staff. And the Bears coaching staff isn't great, but Justin Fields also hasn't been great as well. Um, this, I think, I don't know if this was like intentional from Justin Fields to like put the pressure on them to like kind of be a little bit loose with him and let him do his thing. But I mean, what a way to kind of, show that you could be the guy if you just give me some free reign, right? Like what a way to do it other than playing the Kansas City Chiefs. So now, I mean, Justin Fields has to show up. There's pressure on him, but now you play the Kansas City Chiefs, defending champs. I don't know. I'm gonna be like this game just recently became like a kind of a must watch in my opinion, just because like there's gonna be a lot of scrutiny on Justin Fields because if he loses his game and he plays awfully,
Yeah, he can't let it be a blowout. Like
if it's close, I think there's some leeway.
yeah.
If it's ass, I mean, if they get blown out, which means he plays like ass, then I don't know what's happening. I do again.
Well,
There's a
I'll tell you. I'll tell you what's happening. Caleb Williams, you will be a Chicago Bear next
unless
season,
unless Caleb Williams goes back to college,
or Drake May. Like one of them is going to be a Chicago Bear next season.
someone's career is gonna be fucked. But I mean, I don't know, man. I think there's a ticking time bomb with the Bears. I like. Oh my god, they have the Panthers pick too, bro.
Yeah.
It's crazy because like a team with 2 top 10 picks possibly should feel encouraged. I don't
We
know.
we we have two teams that are going to have top 8 picks in next year's draft. Half of the first 8 picks in the draft are going to belong to the Cardinals and the Bears together.
And like the Bear, like I mean the Cardinals, I guess you could put them in this category, but it's just like I can't. Like I should feel good about a team's future if they have 2 top 8 picks, right? I don't know. I can't feel good about these two teams. So that's that. Eagles Buccaneers, fellas. I'm actually if the Bucks win this, they've been frisky, 2-0, and the Eagles have also been the Eagles are also 2-0 and they've been a little bit suspect. Obviously, we think the Eagles are going to win here, but if the Bucks could beat the Eagles, I'll be sold. I mean, Baker, he has been playing great, but he has been playing terrible. Like he's been playing just fine. But if he could beat the Eagles, if the Bucks could beat the Eagles here, that's a statement win. That is a statement win. And then also, it's the meh division. All these teams are 2-0, and I think it's important for like some of these teams in the NFC South, if they could like get like, a game ahead while the other teams lose. I mean, huge, huge for them. I would be pretty shocked if the Bucks, because they'd be in like the driver's seat so far to be like a wild card team in the NFC if they beat the Eagles, right? So I think it would say a lot about the Bucks, but it would also say a lot about the Eagles because like there's something going on. Like there's something missing with Philly, you know. And if this is a close game, fellas, I still wouldn't feel as good about the Eagles win. I already don't feel good about their season right now, even though they're 2-0. And then of course the Rams and the Bengals, fellas. Oof. If the Bengals go 0-3 here, if they lose, what are we doing? What do you guys think happens if they lose? I think it would be huge for the Rams.
Yeah.
Go 2-1. You kind of went neck and neck with the 49ers. I think they would be again, they just need to manage until Cooper Kupp comes back. Because if so, then I do think they have a solid chance at becoming a wild card team in the playoffs. And you just get to the playoffs, and then whatever happens, happens. Fuck it. But if you could just manage while Cooper Kupp is out, they're in good position because I think Stafford looks great. You have Aaron Donald. I mean, Puka, bro. I mean, like Sean McVay is getting so many. Like he is just breeding gems out of these like receivers that are coming out of nowhere. So, like the Rams should feel really good right now, and I do think a win against the Bengals would be huge. But if the Bengals lose, fellas, 0-3. Oof, season's not looking too hot. See, but I do think the injury to Nick Chubb for the Browns does change a bit. Just does change the trajectory of the AFC North a bit because I mean Dame, I'm pretty sure Dame doesn't feel the same now about the Browns' chances with Nick Chubb. First of all, prayers up to Nick Chubb because that was a gruesome injury. Anyone who saw the replay, I don't encourage you to watch it, but
Please
I
don't.
mean
Yeah, just don't do it.
their season's kind of fucked now, unless they like trade for like a Jonathan Taylor. But like even then, you're not sure because Deshaun Watson sucks ass. But yeah, I mean, I'm a little bit worried about the Bengals. I'm not gonna lie, because I think the Ravens they play who the Colts next. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're about to go 3-0. Anthony Richardson isn't playing. Fellas, of all these games, I mean, talk about the Bengals Rams first. Then of all those games, which one are you most excited to see the most in terms of just like the domino effect, consequences of a loss, successes of a W. Dame?
Personally, this may be biased, but for me, it's the Patriots and Jets. The I mean, I think I forgot what the stat was. I think the Jets lost to the Patriots like
14.
14 times in a row. I mean, that's just ridiculous. Last year, I think they were robbed in New York when they had an egregious roughing the passer
Yes.
call right
They
before
had
the
one
pick six.
they had one last week against the
Yeah, but
Cowboys.
that one in that Patriots game last year, I truly think they cost them the game. And I know it was in the second quarter, right before half, but the Jets run that back right before half. It's 17-3, I believe, and they get the ball back at half. I just don't see a way they were losing that game. But this game could mean a lot for both teams. I mean, the Pats could end up 0-3 after this game, and they could really be questioning their future. Not only Bill Belichick, but Mac Jones as well. And as for the Jets, if you start 1-2 and Zach Wilson looks the same way he has against the Patriots in the years past, I mean, then you really start questioning yourself whether you're ready to bring in a guy to compete with him or you're looking at a guy who, in another game that's pretty interesting, is Chargers and Vikings. If the Vikings go 0-3, they have to question themselves: is Kirk Cousins the guy in their future as well? And if the Jets lose, obviously that could be a match right there. But if the Jets win, I think it will do a whole lot for their confidence, knowing that they finally beat the streak of beating the Patriots. And if they beat them, that means Zach Wilson did enough for them to win the game. And that's all you can ask from him right now as he kind of gets back into that starting role and kind of gains confidence. If they could win a game like that, it'd be huge for them and him specifically as well. As for the Pats, as long as you win the game, you keep yourself like in contention because then you have the tiebreaker over the Jets. You're no longer last place in the division. And then obviously I kind of mentioned briefly the Chargers Viking game. I mean, both these teams are 0-2.
I forgot to bring that up. I'm an idiot. Yeah.
We mentioned them in the 0-2 part of the segment. But this game is huge for both these teams. Neither one of these teams could afford to start out 0-3. For the Vikings, it could just mean a complete rebuild. They wouldn't trade like a guy like Justin Jefferson. That guy's an absolute franchise cornerstone. He's gonna stay there as long as they'll have him. But for Kirk Cousins, I mean, if you start 0-3, your division chances are basically gone. You're just going for a wild card at that point, and you really can't afford any more losing streaks. And with his contract ending at the end of the year, you just really have to ask yourself, if you're not going to compete this year, you might as well get any kind of compensation you can for him to contending team or whatever team wants him for end of the year, and then you just go from there and you kind of rebuild. As for the Chargers, if you start 0-3, there's zero chance you win that division. I think this was a year that many people thought they could dethrone the Chiefs, especially after watching the Chiefs week 1 and seeing how their offense struggles, and obviously the Chris Jones situation. Travis Kelce banged up. That's just not going to go away. So a lot of people thought the Chargers this year could go for that division, and maybe this is the year they go to the playoffs and win a playoff game. But if you win 0-3, not only is your division hopes out, and that very tough AFC is going to be pretty tough for you to make the playoffs in general. So I think that game, along with the Jets game, maybe the Jets game is a little biased for me, but I think both those games have huge implications for all four of these teams' futures.
Jurg, before you go, because yeah, I forgot because I I had in my mind that the Vikings Chargers game we were going to talk about that because I think it's the most important one. Just some news actually. Zach Taylor says that Joe Burrow will be day to day, um, with his calf issue, and Dats will be full go if he's out there for today's practice. Giving him time is best, quote unquote. Not great because a calf injury, like that's just, yeah, I don't know. It's just that's
You're
not
playing a dangerous game there.
you are. It's at that point, I don't know. So if you want to talk about that, go ahead. But in terms of like the Vikings Chargers, before you go on, Jurg, because I'm pretty sure you're going to talk about that because we do think that is the most important game because both teams are 0-2. Both teams are playoff aspirations. Because I think if the Chargers go 3 in that division, they're fucked. They're done, right?
Well, they're also they're more likely to be out of a wild card spot if they also
For
go
sure.
0-3.
For sure. Well, I don't even know what's going on in the AFC because I do think it's actually a lot more open because some teams are just getting hurt left and right. Here's the thing though with the Chargers. If the Chargers go 0-3, where do the Chargers go? Because you have an absurd amount of talent to not be bad. Like they can never be like fully bad. Where do you go though? That's the thing. If like they have a mediocre season and they miss the playoffs, like what's next for the Chargers? And it's such a bad question for them to have because it's
Complete
just
leadership overhaul.
because they haven't been good enough to get far in the playoffs. It's a purgatory team that's facing like really bad consequences because their talent, like they have a really good talent, but they can't do much with it. But like you said, it's going to be Brandon Staley. He's going to get the axe. So I
Oh,
guess
not
Dirk
just him.
talk. Yeah, they're going to have an overhaul, but like they just re-signed Herbert, bro. He's one of the most talented quarterbacks in the NFL.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess Dirk, talk about that game, the implications, the result will have, the implications of that game. If there's any other games that you're like looking at more intensively because you're interested in. Yeah, go ahead.
We have a couple games here that ultimately a result could already put into shape what's going to happen in the offseason. And Chargers Vikings is first. Like you said, Chris, if it is the Vikings that are going 0-3, then I think it'll officially spell the end of the Kirk Cousins era. You only have a head coach who's entering his second year there, so I don't see him being axed this season, especially because last season they won 13 games in year one. But I will it's going to be a changing of the guard of things in Minnesota because like things have been the way they've been for a long time. Kirk Cousins has been the quarterback there since what, 2017, 2018, something like that.
Yeah.
So it's been a very long cup of coffee there, to say the very least. And you need to see some change if things aren't working out. So that's going to happen in that specific case. If it's the Chargers that go 0-3, Brendan Staley needs to be fired immediately. And if they miss the playoffs, Tom Telesco is going to be fired by the end of the season. He has been, because I just double checked it, he's been the general manager of the Chargers since 2013. That's about a decade run as the general manager. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think they only have one playoff win in that decade. That's not good. That's not even good for the Houston Texans. The Houston Texans have more playoff wins since 2013 than you. And look where that team is at now. The Arizona Cardinals have either the same amount of playoff wins or maybe the one more than you since 2013. again. Look at where they are now. That is unacceptable for a team that went from. And here's the thing for the Chargers. Because we talk about this with the Colts, they got to be, some rough years after Andrew, but they got to go from Peyton Manning to Andrew Luck. The Green Bay Packers got to go from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers, TBD on Jordan Love. Me personally, I don't think he's the long-term answer, but TBD. The LA Chargers got lucky, and they were able to go from Phillip Rivers to Justin Herbert in terms of having a quality quarterback. Heck, Herbert's probably more talented than Phillips and will have more stats than Phillip Rivers at the end of the day. I think every Phillip Rivers passing record could be broken by Justin Herbert for the Chargers. But you've done nothing with him. You asked me, I think it was last week, Chris, what the Chargers need to do, what Brandon Staley needs to do to save his job. If he's allowed to have a job after this week 3, if they end up losing, he needs to somehow, some way rally this team and make it to the playoffs and go from there. And it's kind of a similar thing when you mentioned the Cincinnati Bengals, or where did they go from 0-3? They don't have a choice. They have to compete. The Cincinnati Bengals, T. Higgins is a free agent after this season. Jonah Williams is a free agent after this season. You are going to have to pay Jamar Chase here, because the Joe Burrow contract, yes, you got that handled. You got to pay Jamar Chase as well. You need to draft well. You need to figure things out defensively for yourself. The Chargers and Bengals are two teams that, like, tanking is not an option. These are not teams where they can be okay with tanking for the year. They have to keep going out there. They have to keep competing. They don't have a choice. For the Bengals, I don't think it's going to be as severe, although, again, I'm not the biggest Zach Taylor fan in the world. But I don't think, especially the Bengals ownership, those cheap pieces of shit. I know they just paid Joe Burrow, but like we saw with Marvin Lewis, he should have been fired like 4 years before he actually did. Like, they're not going to fire Zach Taylor. They're not going to fire a coach and have to pay him while then paying the next coach. That's not going to happen. So I think Zach Taylor's job is relatively safe, especially what the last 2 years have been for him. But it's Brendan Staley's job, straight up. This team is broken. This team is giving off 28-3 Atlanta Falcons vibes, and at least they made it to the Super Bowl. You lost in the wild card round, and it just feels like there's a broken spirit on this team, and you need to get rid of the main face you can get rid of from that, and that's the head coach. Like, Brendan Staley's job for the next 2 weeks is on the line. If the Chargers are 0-3, or even let's say they win this week but they lose the week after, if they go 1-3, I still think that's grounds to fire him. This is a terrible start for a team that, like Dame said, not myself in particular, I picked the Chiefs to win the division this year, but a lot of people thought that maybe this could have been the year where they finally overtake and win the AFC West, which, might I remind you, they haven't done since, I think, 2009. We've gone through a literal decade and a half plus. We were all elementary or at least sixth graders by last time they won the goddamn division. Like, it's been a really long time since the Los Angeles. Well, they were San Diego back then. Goddamn, like they were in a different city. It's inexcusable for the Chargers, to say the very least. They are the team with the most pressure, and Chargers Vikings is going to be the most must-watch game for this week, bar none. Other what could be intriguing games, I would say you mentioned the NFC South, like the trio of those games will be critical into what happens. I will say with the Buccaneers, I think the big thing for the Buccaneers 2-0 start has been confidence for them. Baker Mayfield, we know, is a guy that he needs to run on confidence. If they falter, if they don't play well against Philly, I'm not even saying if they lose. If they lose a close, like 35-28 game,
Still
I
a
think they're
W.
fine. Exactly. If they lose like 35-14, I think you could start to see the unraveling of the Buccaneers season, because that is a team that needs to have their confidence with them if they're going to play good week in and week out. I think the Buccaneers need the confidence of a good performance against Philly to continue it into the season. So I think all 3 NFC South games for them will be must watch. Oh, my poor Carolina Panthers, my poor Panthers. But the Seattle Seahawks could go 2-1, so there's that. I think those are some of the games. I will say this, not short term, but I saw the meme this week. I know I sent it to both of you, but no one ever responds to me on IG. The potential, and I'm going to be praying for this. We might have, I think it's week 16 would be the matchup, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe week 17.
I'll look.
0-15 Arizona Cardinals, 0-15 Chicago Bears. Book it.
You think the Bears would go 0-15?
I'm not saying they will, but I'm saying it's possible, because they're 0-2. Their defensive coordinator is gone, and they're about to face the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chicago Bears season could be coming apart. And you're telling me, Chris, don't take this away from me. The idea that 2 teams combined for 0-30 will face each other, don't take that away from me.
Well, Jurg, how about this?
How
about this week 4, which would be next week? Yeah. Broncos Bears.
Whew. Oh my God, the Tank Bowl of 2023 is looking so good. Oh Lord, Broncos. Who's the Broncos opponent this week? My bad if we already said it. Who are they? Oh, it's the Dolphins. My bad. It's the Dolphins. Oh, good luck with that, Denver. Yeah, man, there's a lot of potential this season for some solid tank bowl matchups, and that's what I'm most excited for. I'm really excited because you were talking about the Cardinals Giants game earlier, Chris. I know what happened at halftime. The Arizona Cardinals owner called the locker room via Zoom, and he said that he's going to raise the prices of all the food and drinks in the team facility again
I still can't
if
believe that shit.
if they if they don't lose the game. So that's why they tanked it, and what a phenomenal tank job it was for them. So that'll be a big one for me. But actually, as we're recording tonight, it's Thursday night football between the 49ers Giants. I'm actually looking forward to this game because
Why?
I want to see what that fucking fraud of a quarterback in New York is able to do without Saquon Barkley. Because a lot of people like to really talk some shit about that second half against the Cardinals and are trying to feel good about
Yeah, I
themselves.
don't understand that.
And it's a rough fucking I put on my story like taunting the Giants a little bit, like who would give Daniel Jones that contract after last season and then expect this. And I had a couple people saying it's like, so do you take that back? I'm like, fuck no. It's Daniel Jones. Like, bro, the second half against the Cardinals, it's the Cardinals. You're supposed
I really think the Cardinals threw it. I really think they
they
threw it
did,
on
bro. You
purpose.
should not have been losing. They were losing by 20 fucking points.
And
How
bro,
are
when I
you
saw
losing
the
by
score,
20?
I was like, Cardinals, what are you doing? Why are you winning this? And
Exactly.
then of course, they knew.
And then order slowly got restored. But it's like, bro, there is zero. I forget the order of the next four games, but it's 49ers, it's Seahawks, it's Dolphins and Bills, I think are the next four game for the Giants in some order. Or
Yeah.
maybe, yeah. It's like, bro, you're going to start the season 1-5. And like we were talking about, I know you guys have seen the graphic. This is why I'm intrigued. You guys have seen that graphic about the Vikings, right? That they were like 11-0 last season, one score games, and they're 0-2 this season. How many times did the Giants come back from double digit deficits last season? And now they have fucking tricked people, not just their fans, but other casuals into thinking that, oh, they came back from another double digit deficit. They could, like, the next month, they'll challenge these teams. No, the fuck they're not. Go ahead. Go lose by 2 touchdowns in the first half by the 49ers. You're going to get blown out by 20. Go lose to the Seattle Seahawks in the first half by 2. I know we're not high on Haley Steinfeld's boyfriend right now, but Josh Allen and the Bills, if they go up 14-0 or 20-7
It's
against
done.
the Giants, it's done. The Dolphins will like Tyreek Hill will torch that entire secondary and put them on a shish kebab. Like, bro, it's not fucking happening. It's not happening. So I want to see what that fraud of a quarterback is going to be able to do. And I want to see if maybe in some way, shape, or form, he's going to be respectable enough to prove why he was overpaid $40 million. I actually do really want to see that from a very morbid point of view. Because we were talking about make or breaks for all these 2-0 and 0-2 teams. Let's talk about the 1-1 team here. Let's talk about the Giants needing to not start 1-5 somehow if they want to keep their
Especially
season.
with the Commanders being 2-0.
And that's the biggest monkey. Jesus Lord, that's the biggest monkey wrench in this because the Commanders. We were talking about how wide open the NFC wildcard was going into the season. If the Commanders are able to keep pace with the Cowboys and the Eagles, let's say for the first 8 games, that is a big issue for the rest of the NFC because the Seahawks and the Niners. I don't care if they're 1-1. The Seahawks are going to be good. The Seahawks are going to be a good team. And as of right now, we're talking about the 3 wildcard spots now potentially being the Seahawks, the Cowboys, and the Commanders. You can't start 1-5 this season. You can't start 0-3, 0-4 this season. This is the next 2 to 3 weeks are critical in teams being able to stay alive for the rest of the season. It absolutely critical. If any team right now that only has 1 win after the next 2 to 3 weeks, take them out the playoff picture. It's done. The season's over because there's no way.
All right. I think that leads us to our main event segment, Clowns and Crowns for week 2. We already described what the segment is in week 1. Fellas, I think we should start off with the crowns for this week. I'll start off. I'm gonna go for my crown of week 2. The Arizona Cardinals went up 28-0 to the Giants, and then they understood the assignment, and then they were just like, nah, we need to lose this. We need Caleb Williams. And then they lost. And they got Giants fans hype, which is hilarious. It gets a laugh out of me. But, their loss was a win. And I do think 28-0, going up to 28-0 is good for players who know that it's a lost season. So, you know what? Benefits across all cylinders. The players know that they're not horrible, but they also know that they need to lose the season. And, they lost this game. They would have been a big clown for me if they won this game. But they lost. So shout out to the Cardinals for being the crown of the week because they knew what they had to do. Dame?
My crown is gonna go to Micah Parsons, and I just think this guy is the best defensive player in the league, the best player outside of Patrick Mahomes, period, in the league. He had 2 sacks. He had that strip from Dalvin Cook, which was sick. He had 3 tackles for losses. He absolutely dominated his game, and I get it that Chet's offensive line is a joke, and still don't understand how Dwayne Brown is on a roster, let alone alive. But Micah Parsons is every single game showing you why he's the best defensive player in the league, and if he continues this, he's on his way to his first of many Defensive Player of the Year awards.
My crown for this week will go to, I mean, Chris actually mentioned him earlier in the episode, out of BYU, Puka Nacua. This kid is off to a torrent start this season. Like you were talking about Kirk Cousins and Tua being on pace for like 6,000 plus yards. Like it's ridiculous with the 2 game pace, but I saw the two game pace for Puka and it's like 2,200 receiving yards and like
Unreal.
I think receptions was like what 150, 160, something like that. Like he's allegedly on pace to break the record, break both the receptions and yards record in the season. Which will it happen? Probably not, but I mean, great for the kid. But specifically against the San Francisco 49ers, 15 catches for 147 yards, which follows up the 10 catches, 119 yards he did in week 1. He did even better in week 2 against a really good San Francisco 49ers defense. All the props in the world to the kid. The only flaw, and it's not on him, it's on Sean McVay. How does this kid not have a touchdown so far this season?
Yeah, that's crazy.
He has 0 touchdowns. So Sean McVay, get this kid in the end zone. He deserves it. But Puka Nacua easily gets my crown this week. This kid is balling.
Yeah. So, Jurg, why don't you lead us to the clowns?
Oh, I have so many options here. I'm always torn because the thing is, I feel like I'm a little bit too general with my clowns sometimes, and I feel like it's better if I'm more specific. So my clown this week will be Deshaun Watson because he's playing so poorly. He lost the Browns that game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. He lost them that game. In a game where we mentioned the wackiness of what was the Steelers getting some defensive touchdowns, the Browns also were able to force a turnover or two. I think a fumble and an interception on Kenny Pickett, which, trust me, Matt Canada was very much in consideration for Clown of the Week as well yet again, but he just barely misses out here. But Deshaun Watson, just overall, like, he played so bad. He is not showing any way whatsoever why he deserves to be the only fully guaranteed quarterback in NFL history right now in terms of contract. And the funny part, he put his hands on a ref, like, in the game, and he was asked
And
about
then you
it.
forgot.
Yeah, which, I mean, let's not be shocked, non-consensually touching people is something that he's been good at forgetting about over the last, like, year and a half or two. But we saw this on TV, my boy. You can't get away with it. But, yeah, Deshaun Watson is easily my clown of the week here. Just not good, man. Like, the Browns are not paying, $200 million in order to get 22 of 44. Or 22 of 40, excuse me, for 1 touchdown and 1 interception, and can't even break 250 yards. Ryan Tannehill had more passing yards this week than you. Case closed.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back-to-back weeks to the same guy. I'm gonna go Justin Fields again. I think he even had a worse week this week than he did last week. He went 16 for 29, only 211 yards, 2 picks, 2 fumbles, and he took 6 sacks. Taking the 6 sacks makes absolutely 0 sense to me. I don't care how bad your offensive line is. If you're known as a running quarterback and you rushed for 1,000 fucking yards last year, there's no reason you should be sacked 6 times. And then to just throw in the 2 picks at the end of the game were absolutely abysmal. And great for Shaq Barrett for getting one of them and returning for a touchdown for his late daughter. But God, Justin Fields is awful, and he just looks more awful than he did week 1. So there's no way I can't give it into him again.
Yeah, so this is between 2 teams, but I guess I'm gonna go with the one who lost the 21-3 lead. I'm gonna go with the Broncos. For a sec, I didn't know that they lost the 21-3 lead, and then I was like, oh shit. I mean, typical Broncos. They're my clown for this week. But just I don't know what that team is doing, man. I don't know. And you lose to a Commanders team who you were supposed to beat, but apparently the Commanders look decent now. But I don't know. Broncos 21-3. You're supposed to be somewhat better this year, I guess, but you're not. I was gonna go with the Chargers because 0-2, but Titans are always those Tennessee Titans, man. I don't know. I can never rule them out. So yeah, I'm gonna go with the Broncos just because of how they lost the 21-3 lead, and I know they got robbed because of a pass interference call that should have been called at the end, but still, he lost the 21-3 lead. He shouldn't even be in that position. Russell Wilson, just a clown. But I'm going to go with the Broncos as a whole because they lost that lead. That wraps up our Clowns and Crowns segment. Fellas, what a segment. What a week. We're already into week 3. Just nuts how fast this season is speeding by. But yeah, that'll do it for this week. What an episode, fellas. Phenomenal job as always. Jurg, where can they find us on the socials?
Ladies and gentlemen, you already know, if you want to continue to keep up with this outstanding, amazing audio medium that is the Somewhat Sports Podcast, you must follow us on Instagram at somewhat.sports, where you get constant stories up whenever episodes are posted on our feeds on YouTube and Spotify, and you also get our weekly predictions, which will most certainly be up, of course, by the time your ears listen to this outstanding episode. And speaking of the episodes of the show, YouTube and Spotify is where you find us. Somewhat Space, then Sports. Look for the beautiful red logo made by our amazing graphics man, fearless leader himself. Like I said, YouTube and Spotify. Like, comment, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Give us a 5 stars and review on Spotify. Please let us know what you want more of. Like Chris said, the NFL is carrying us for a bit, but don't worry, more sports is going to be diversified in there soon. MLB playoffs is coming up. We always like talking about that around this time of year. NHL season is coming up, and the NBA season is coming up, which I think in a couple weeks we're going to figure it out, but we will be doing our NBA season predictions as we always do on the show. This time including talking about and trying to figure out what the hell is the NBA in-season tournament. What a year 2023 to 2024 is going to be. And if you want to catch up on all the sports news and get the best analysis out there, I mean, you're already listening to the show, just come back next week here with the Somewhat Sports Podcast.
Beautifully put as always, Jurg. Beautifully put as always. To all listeners listening, if you made it this far, we appreciate you. And until next time, peace.